Thank you very much, Sultan, for this intro. And actually, if you ask yourself why two persons from GLI sitting here at stage, it's actually that I come more from the engineering side. Choosy is actually a part of our sales team, especially for new companies, startups, new game studios, and so on, that start in the gaming and gambling business, and she's often very confronted with what is actually an independent test lab doing, what is it here for, how can it help with licensing or product certification processes, and it's for us it was a surprise, to be honest, as engineers, that you're confronted with such question as well.
Yes.
From our other perspective, it makes sense, that our companies new and persons new to this industry will be and might be confused, at the beginning and need some learning curve and phase, and will confront you with such questions, of course, as well.
So first of all, thanks Zoltan for organizing this very nice conference, and thanks everyone who will be here today listening to me. As my colleague said, my name is Giusy Campo. I work for GLI. We work for GLI Gaming Labs, and I'm one of the business development manager, taking care of new clients, onboarding new clients. And today here, as we said, we will talk about the difference between certification and licensing, because most of the people, especially B2B and B2C, they always mix up the two topics, and it's better to clarify the two process. So
okay, I've prepared a few questions for you, Giusy, and our first question would be: do all regulated markets actually require a product or certification conducted by an independent test lab?
So not all regulated markets required an international test lab testing their products. For example, Austria or France or Germany. For those markets, for example, you have to go directly to the regulator and ask for an advice, guidance. They will tell you where to perform the testing. Then for the other regulated market worldwide, definitely you can come to GLI and we will support you on the certification process.
Okay, so not all markets that are gambling regulated, online gambling regulated, also have it technically regulated or require a specific testing, or the testing is even conducted by a special division by the regulator.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, then can an independent test lab actually also help with the licensing process?
Well, no. This is the thing. That all test lab, we do not take care of the licensing process. You need a lawyer who guide you on the licensing process. And test lab will support you on the whole certification process. So there is a very difference over there. So you have to come to us only when you need to perform a certification and get a report to give to the regulator.
So technical tasks only, and for the rest of licensing questions, there are more than enough lawyers around, I recognized already. Happy to consult, Yes. So what kind of licenses actually basically do exist in regulated markets? Are they all the same? So what licenses, different licenses?
Well, there are different type of licensing for both B2B and B2C, but still for this topic, you need to go to your lawyer, and I'm sure in this room there are a lot of lawyers. They can advise you on the application of your license. That definitely can be either a B2B or a B2C.
So some jurisdictions also distinguish between business to business suppliers, actually, the supplying industry.
Yeah, well,
there only are supply operators with technical products like platform games, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Do labs like GLI actually also need to be licensed, accredited, or certified?
Absolutely, yes. Also, all international test lab, they need to be accredited. We also go through a certification process in order to be compliance also with the market. So, and GLI is one of those few labs, and I want to say maybe the only one is really accredited in most of the regulated market worldwide. So we also go through our certification process in order to be accredited in all regulated markets. So we also perform ISO testing, for example. So yeah, definitely, we also go through our testing.
So we don't have it really easier as
no,
operators or suppliers. It's actually 3 ISO standards that our independent test labs comply with. This is 17025 for testing, 17020 for inspection service, and 17065 for certifications. And if you add security, it's also 27001 you have to comply with to do the job. What products or what is actually in the focus of testing and certification?
Well, depending on the product that you develop, you can develop an RNG, games, platform, PAM, a sport book platform. Maybe you go through an integration testing process. So depending on the product that you have, maybe you develop a new unique product, could be a game, for example, and then you don't even know that this product can be certified in a specific market, or for example, a list of markets that maybe you are interested in. You can also come to GLI and we can do the research for you, and we can let you know if that specific topic, that specific product that you developed can be compliant to the market that you are interested in. So we can also help you on that.
So actually, all what is game critical, actually subject of testing, basically in technical regulated markets.
Correct.
Okay, can GLI actually also perform IT security testing?
Sorry?
Can GLI also perform IT security testing?
Yes, we have a security division called Bulletproof, which is our sister company, and we can help you also in all cybersecurity testing. And so all the ISMS audit, so information security management system, penetration testing, vulnerability assessment, definitely we can also help you on all the security testing.
Excellent. When does a product actually need to be resubmitted or tested again?
Yeah, so when you perform the testing for a specific market, and maybe after a few months you make some changes on that product, but this product was already certified, then you need to go through a substantial change, we call it, so or a change management, depends on the testing. But if you make a change, this change is critical, you need to test this piece of change that you made. So, unless there are some markets as well, for example, Denmark, definitely you need to do an annual recertification. So it depends on the regulations and the markets. You have to perform annual testing.
Yeah, actually, just can add from technical perspective, it started with UK and Denmark, you're right, and now more and more countries are taking over a so-called change management system or strategy because the development, technical development in the online sector is quite dynamic. So you touch your source code very often, what leads to new versions, and it is hard to find out if every change really needs a resubmission. So many jurisdictions and regulators have already established a testing strategy with the labs plus a change management strategy. Because certain changes are just cosmetic changes. Artwork is changed or drivers are updated so that the mobile device can still display the game, and they're not that critical. Whilst game critical changes, new game math, RNG change, for example, they need to require immediate retesting and resubmission. Others just need to be reported on quarterly basis to the regulator. And once per year, you actually do an update submission where you just summarize so that the regulator has the latest versions available and knows that everything is approved. okay, do all markets actually require the same testing procedure? If not, what's best basis or standards to develop a product against and for, to be fit for the international market?
So every regulated market, they have their own regulations, and the product must be certified against the technical requirement of that specific market. Then definitely the best practice would be to get the certification of our GLI standards, especially having GLI 19 and 33 can help you on entering any regulated market worldwide. So best practice would be to get a certification GLI 19 and 33 and use them to do all the transfer of approval to all regulated market worldwide. And on top of that, you can use the GLI 19 and 33 certification also to the non-regulated market. Most of them, they also accept our GLI standard. So I can strongly advise to get these two standards.
Well, certain jurisdictions took it over one-to-one, like Greece, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
It is always also causing an internal debate at GLI, I need to be honest. When you're a new client, small client, and you start up, it's maybe easier to reach out to the first 2-3 target markets or one target market you have in mind already.
Yes.
Once you deal with 15, 20 regulated jurisdictions, it's then easier to develop your products in line with GLI standards, because every lab actually, not only GLI, I need to be honest, creates gap analysis to the target market. So it makes your development steps and R&D easier and more efficient to develop against the standard first and then to close the gap to the target market. Because GLI 19, GLI 33, it's an open standard, you can download them from the website. It's not something what GLI is inventing themselves. Actually, we pick out examples from various regulations and put the requirements together to one standard, and then actually I would say with GLI 19 you meet already between 80 and 90% of requirements of individual target markets later on.
Yes. Most of the regulated are based on GLI 19 and 33 worldwide. So the gap is really 10%, 20% depending on the specific technical requirements of a specific market. But 19 and 33 is the basic.
Also, just to explain why it's also difficult for testing labs, for example, to bring you from one dedicated market to the next. Yeah, we are talking about in the gambling industry about 707 jurisdictions worldwide. So actually, we have checklists and methods to test for 707 jurisdictions, and if you then make cross-checks of each other's and gap analysis, this will be horrible in the end. So it's easier for the labs to get fit with one standard and then to make the gap analysis and close the gap to the specific target markets.
I think I have also a question for you, Alex.
Really?
Maybe I didn't tell you before, but do I need to be concerned or even fear the product submission?
Never fear when GLI is near. No, actually, of course I wouldn't underestimate a product submission. Yeah, so it takes some requirement, it's a technical standard, it doesn't matter what kind of product you develop, or if it's even just a KitchenAid, you need to meet some standards and develop after standards. But GLI is actually as ISO certified lab, we cannot consult directly. We cannot tell you how you need to design your RNG to comply. We can also not tell you how to design your games to comply. Because this would be a conflict of interest with ISO. But of course, we can advise what you need to prepare for a product submission, what is, for example, special in dedicated markets. In Italy, for example, this is really from preparation perspective for an R&D department, really hardcore, because they even want to have checksums of each stored procedure in the database and stuff like that. So the preparation is different. But tomorrow we have 2 colleagues here from the compliance department, Stella and Emma. Stella has enormous experience with game math. RNG testing actually comes from the math department, joint compliance. And actually we will do a workshop for you as operators, as suppliers, how to prepare from technical perspective in the best way to do a submission to any independent testing lab.
We can also help our clients by doing a workshop for them. So if you are a startup and you don't have any clue about regulations, you still also don't have any compliance manager, definitely you can come to us and we can help you on guiding you, yes, on all regulated markets and explain the regulations, and also talk to your technical people in order to make your products compliant. We can also try to help you in that sense as well by creating some workshop for you, explaining the regulations, and we can explain how to do the transfer, how to be compliant to a specific market.
Well, this is actually very also somehow the link between regulator and the industry and the markets are very often we also have clients that come with a new gaming idea or don't know if a specific content would be compliant with, or sometimes we know it, yeah, or sometimes we need to cross-check and evaluate this together with the regulator, yeah, so also the regulator has its own interpretation of the law itself, also technical interpretation, and then we have to evaluate this together with the regulator, yeah, of course.
So yeah, compliance might be a little bit boring sometimes, but it's something that everyone needs in order to be compliant.
For the developers, it's less boring,
yes.
More challenging, I would say, but it's actually yeah, a good thing that gambling is regulated, is legal, and then it should be also regulated in the best way, of course, from legal as from technical perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was quick. Zoltan.
Have you been faster than expected?
Maybe there is someone with some questions about certification
actually, it's more than 25 minutes
licensing. I don't know if anyone has some questions about a specific market or yes.
I'll use the specificity of the local market to give you a tricky question. How do you feel when you are accredited by the regulator as an accredited test lab, but then your certificates are being refused?
So far, no. As far as I know, we never been not refused by a regulatory body or not, Alex.
No. It's actually it can happen that the report, the testing report or the certificate is rejected by the regulator, but then it always needs a justification for it. Yeah. I also need to say this depends from market to market. In Australia, for example, the regulators are that strict that for a missed comma in a sentence, your report is rejected and you pay a penalty. So we pay a fine for that. Also the US are more stricter. So it also depends on the regulator. I also need to say this is where I need to protect or defend the regulators a little bit. Yeah. Usually, regulators also don't have an easy life. Yeah, they're understaffed, under-budgeted. So, for example, you know this as well as operator. Some regulators are more communicative, some are less communicative. Depends also on their experience, also on what staff they have. So. We even got already, or last week I got an apologize from a regulator who rejected reports, but said, well, actually put the blame onto us because we were not able to explain or answer your questions in detail. Yeah. But in such cases, we also communicate to the client. Look, we need to cross-check this with the regulator. But usually every report that goes out actually must, and we must need to do best that this is also a valid statement. Yeah, so it doesn't happen often, to be honest. Yeah, that we get reports rejected. It's more or less an exception and not standard.
It hasn't happened so far, fortunately.
But of course, then it needs to be reworked, yeah, and corrected as the regulator likes to have it.
What really surprised me on this one is that why even the regulator double checks your work if you are accredited by them in the first place.
Well, this is actually the responsibility of the regulator. So actually, also the regulator has the final word, and of course we are ISO certified. Of course, we have also to fulfill the requirements of the regulator, but the last word has the regulator. So when the regulator is in the opinion that a lab has done the job wrong or has questions, sometimes they have questions. Switzerland, for example, is a very well organized. It's a small team, but very good team. Yeah, but they're also very careful in specifying the testing strategy with all accredited labs. But actually, it's the ESBK, so the regulator itself, that tells us, look, send us the report. But you will also find notes in the report. This is where we ask the regulator for clarification. Yeah, and then the regulator has the final words. So it is actually the liability, of course, is also on lab ends. Yeah, but the regulator has to fulfill his responsibility. Yeah.
Would you welcome this increased responsibility?
Sorry?
As a test lab, would you welcome this increased responsibility that basically your will be the certifying authority and no one will be double checking your work?
No, this is actually, we are not an authority. So when we are talking about a regulator, we are talking about a state authority or an outsourced authority which is independent but reports to the state. This is what cannot be taken over by and shouldn't be taken over by a lab.
We take our responsibility on what we test mostly, and then the regulator duty to double check that what we wrote on the report is actually...
Actually, we are responsible in first instance according to ISO. So this is where we are audited by the ISO auditors on annual basis, each individual lab, by the way, so this cannot be generalized really. And in the second instance, of course, we are also responsible and liable in the direction of the regulator, depending on the conditions of the regulator. So for example, in the history, you also had already labs, you might know as well, names that are not here anymore in the industry because they have lost their license. Because at the time, they don't do the job as they should do, or just issue a license. If you just would issue licenses, yeah, it's just a question of time. This will pop up at regulators' ends, and then you easily lose your license. And let's say for an international lab, yeah, that is SGLI, that is licensed all over the world. This also even has then consequences on international basis. So once you lose your license in Malta, for example, for online, you can close your lab because nobody can use you for any international jurisdictions anymore. Jurisdictions, for example, like Singapore, US, you actually proactively, as a requirement for your lab license, need to inform the regulator about any incident on international basis, about any lawsuit, law case, whatever. They want to know everything, and if you damage your reputation in Europe, this has also international consequences, of course. Yeah.
And as like us, also B2B and B2C, they have to make sure to choose the right test lab in order to not lose their own license, because it's important that you make sure that the scope of work that you give to your test lab is the right one. You get the right certification to give to the regulator. So also make sure this.
Well, actually, when you use a good lab, you can also rely on the results. Yeah. So once the product is approved, you can expect less troubles from the market, from the regulator as well. Yeah. And when you build on sand and you have your lab disappearing from the scenery, you actually have to redo all the testing as well. Plus, you risk the possibility that you must stop operation maybe, and so it has then more consequences for everybody. So you don't really do a client a favor if you don't test and just issue a report.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.